Good morning. I am Nancy from Nancy's Health and Wellness and Mindset Life Coaching. I'm so glad you're here. Um, I started a little bit early. My start time is 11 o'clock today. We've got 10:58. So I'm going to give a couple minutes in case people want to join in. Um, but welcome. I can start saying that. Um, I want to start off. Uh, there goes my phone. Let me turn that off. Let me turn it down. Okay. All right. We are close to 11 o'clock. So I'm Nancy from Nancy's Health and Wellness and Mindset Life Coaching. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I have some major, immense gratitude for all of you um, that I have to just get out right now and let you know that I'm so thankful for the messages that are getting out and people are receiving them. Um, I, for those of you who don't know, I'm a certified life coach in the areas of health and wellness and mindset. I am also working on cognitive behavioral therapy life coaching, and I should have my certification in that hopefully by the end of summer. So that is something I'm working on. So I'll be certified in three different areas, which encompass many different um, many different issues. The cognitive behavioral therapy, I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about mindset. I'm passionate about health and wellness, but um, I really feel like, and I'm going to call it CBT because that's a quicker way to say it. CBT is going to be extremely important for people. It deals with depression, PTSD, anxiety. It deals with sorry, the sunshine is coming in and out of my room, so I'll be brighter in a second. But CBT deals with PTSD, depression, anxiety, um, different personality disorders. It's a long list. So if you haven't heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, I would encourage you to research it, look into it, and see what you think of it. And with that, today I want to talk about how our beliefs change the trajectory of our lives. Our beliefs are so powerful that in the medical world, people have been given, just as an example, a sugar pill and been told that, this is going to cure them, this is going to make them feel better. And with the thought of just with their own belief in what that was given to them, the information given to them, they actually healed. And, I also want to do a disclaimer that anything that I talk about, you're welcome to research, you're welcome to look it up. Um I do my work with clients throughout the month, and I also do these videos and I also post them on YouTube. Um, but I do a great deal of research before I do a video. And I like to list my sources. I like to list what it is or how I found the information. So feel free to always fact check me on anything that you have a question about, or you can also personal message me and I will get back to you as soon as I can and answer any questions you might have about a certain subject. So, with that, back to our beliefs and how strong they are. And I talk about self-care and self-talk, and I've, mentioned, several times that our self-talk has a great deal to do with, you know, our behavior. And, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And it sheds light for this one month. just kind of like Mother's Day or Father's Day is one day in a month, but you should really celebrate it all year long. And when I say celebrate it, I mean awareness in particular with mental health, awareness of yourself, your responsibility. We are one component of a whole, WHOLE. We are one component, and every choice that we make affects other people, affects, if you want to call it, I'll say it, the universe. Every decision that we make, every choice that we make, how we conduct ourselves affects. It's a ripple effect, cause and effect. Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We have had some great philosophers bring light to certain things, and I think it's been forgotten. So speaking of behavior and not wanting to give my energy to a couple things that happened this week, but I like to use myself and my life as an example. Hopefully it resonates with people, and hopefully they can understand that they're not alone in what they're, might be dealing with as well. So I had a couple situations this week. One was where somebody tried to pull me into the middle of something they had going on with somebody else. Um, I stopped them in mid sentence and said, you know what? I'm not interested in your side of the story. And, just the interaction I had with that person disturbed me. It concerned me that they felt they could come to me and talk to me accusatory about another person. Um, that was on Monday. Then on Wednesday, um, I had a woman in public verbally assault me because she thought I took her parking spot. Um, I mean, this world has come undone. We are having some major shifts of not so good behavior, of just downright bad behavior. And, what does it have to do with? What is the reason for some of the things that are going on in our world right now? Not to say that there aren't good components in our world, there are, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough good components in our world. Um, that's not being negative. That's being realistic and looking at our world as it is. I've been in this world. Next week is my birthday, and I'll be 49 years old. So I have seen quite a few things in my short life here on earth. I've seen quite a few things. And what I'm seeing now, as opposed to 20 years ago, is frightening. It's downright frightening. There was a time when this country was united. 9/11 was a very good example of that. And then we were divided. And I don't talk about political things, and I'm not going to talk about political things, but these are events that have happened in our history that impacted me, and I'm sure impacted all of you as well in some way. The amount of anger and anxiety and, you know, inappropriate, inconsiderate behavior that is out in our world right now, in our public. I mean, I feel like 5 out of 5 times I go in public, it's either directed towards me or somebody else. And that's not having a victim mentality either. That is realistic. That's looking at a percentage of how many times you go out versus how many times there's some kind of conflict, whether it's someone screaming at someone or, yelling at them or accosting me in a parking lot. And by the way, I got in my car after I saw her go into the store, the woman that screamed at me because I supposedly took her parking spot. Um, I got in my car and I went home and had to process what happened to me, which is the second time this month in public I've had someone just completely come undone over something that I'm just going, are you joking? I mean, first of all, how dare you? And are you joking? Those are the things that come into my mind. Then I have to process the situation and try to figure out, well, why is this happening? What is going on? What's going on? I don't like what's going on. And I have to release any resentment or anger or fear or anything else I have for me to be a happy human being. And that's what I want to encourage everyone to do. You have to release, you know, whatever fear you're having or anger you're having. You have to release it. It's not for the situation, it's not, for the person. It has nothing, it has to do with you and your health. Because have you ever seen a public this sick? I mean, let's not go back to smallpox or the Spanish flu. I'm not even going to go into that. I'm going to say my time on earth, me, as long as I've been here, I'll tell you, my witnessing sickness is sickness, mind and body are together. And I say it all the time and I'll keep saying it all the time. I will never stop saying it. Mind and body go together. When you have a public that every time you go out, it's coughing and, I mean, I have allergies and I cough. Not everything is COVID or a cold or, some people have asthma and some people have, allergies. I happen to have both of those. So sometimes when I cough, or COPD, there's people who have COPD. I have a friend that has that. And they're not sick, they just have a bad cough. But if you go in public, people just assume that you're, ready to be, taken to the hospital. Um, we should not assume why people are sick, but we should be recognizing that, there's a certain reason why people are not doing too well physically. There's actually several reasons why people are not doing well physically. And all of this can be avoided by taking care of your mind. It all starts in the mind. It all starts with your mental health. If you don't have mental clarity, you're not going to function properly. You're not going to function properly at all. So, I just have to get this off here. Sorry about that. So, it is up to each one of us to be responsible for our own behavior and our own actions. And when we encounter actions of other people that are not, conducive to our growth or, that insult us or verbally attack us, it's easy to want to defend yourself and strike back. It's harder to walk away. It's much harder to walk away. I have an extensive amount of training and schooling on what I do, but I'm human. And my first response when somebody comes up to me or insults me is I want to give it right back to them. I do not like the fact that some people feel that they can just behave however they want, say whatever they want. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Um, the woman that I encountered on Wednesday threatened to call police on me because I took her parking spot. My response to her was, "Why don't you do that? And I will sit right here until they get here. I think you should call them. And then I'll give them my business card. And you can tell them that you're irate because I supposedly stole your parking spot," which I've never done in my life, but I didn't tell her that because I'm not going to justify myself. There's no justifying yourself with people like that. There's no rationalization. Um, so when she went into the store, I wasn't going to go into the store and shop because I'm not going to have her behavior escalate, and I'm not going to be caught in that web of destruction. I'm not going to borrow trouble. So I went home, and then I went to a different store after I processed what happened and calmed down, collected my thoughts, and I drove to a different store where I never have any trouble. I don't know what it is about this particular store in Monroe, Washington, but it makes me not want to shop there anymore. So I was upset for a good, you know, 12 hours over that. Just more about what is going on. Why is this happening? What's going on with people? And, you know, I came up with forgiveness and grace. And that sounds kind of weird because, most people's natural reaction isn't forgiveness or grace, or their conclusion isn't forgiveness and grace. And forgiveness is releasing the resentment that you're harboring towards a situation or a person. You're releasing it. You're not doing it for them. And by the way, they're not off the hook on their actions just because you forgive them. It doesn't make it okay just because you forgive them. It means that you are processing the emotion and you are releasing it for yourself so that you can, not get heartburn over it, not be stressed out, not having anxiety over it. Other people's actions should not affect you. You should keep the power that you have and that you hold in yourself. And some may call it taking the high road. And if that's it, sure, take the high road. Take the high road. There comes a time when you have to walk away from people or situations for the betterment of you. Because if you don't take care of yourself, I'm here to tell you, nobody will. Nobody's going to come here and save you. It's up to you. You might have some good guidance. You might have some really good guidance, but it's up to you. It all starts with you. And what I would like to see is more people exhibiting the behavior that I'm talking about as far as being a better person, spreading kindness, being more compassionate. We are part of a whole. We are part of a big universe. And Newton's law comes into effect. And you can call it karma, you can call it whatever you want. I believe that what you put out into the universe comes back to you. I believe that your actions have a profound effect on other people. Your actions, good or bad, have a profound effect on others. Our choices, our choice to behave. We wake up in the morning and we have probably 30, 40 choices that we're making daily. And because we are imperfect, and I do not like the word perfect, because we are imperfect people, we don't always make the right choices. That's okay too. If you learn from what you're doing, if you learn from yesterday, you don't want to take a bad yesterday and apply it to today. Every day is a gift. Every day is a reason to, you know, be alive and live your life intentionally. Live with intent. We really can do amazing things, but we have to believe that we can do them. Our beliefs, our choices, our decisions, all of it encompasses a greater plan, a greater, if you want to say destiny. We are all here for a reason. And, my reason for being on earth is not, for being here. My reason for being here isn't to take flack from total strangers. Um, you know, I don't remember a time in my life, probably from adolescence up to, I don't know, into adulthood, probably deep into my 30s. I had bullies. There was always somebody, and whether it was in high school, and I remember every single one of their names, which I won't say, but I remember. And I had bullies in high school. I had bullies later in life when I was on a job where I worked, coworkers. Um, you know, when you are treated poorly over and over and over, you know, you would think it would beat your self-esteem down. And I think for a lot of people it does. I didn't I didn't have that. I had my self-esteem intact, and I think that was the very reason I was bullied. And I can thank my grandmother Mavis, who is no longer on earth. Um, I can just thank her for the self-esteem. You have to have a support system. You have to have a support system, you know, where you are, whether it was in, adolescence, childhood, adulthood, you have to have a support system. And when you don't have that support system, then you have to be your own support system. And you have to really know yourself and your capabilities and your potential. And then you have to take massive action to execute that. I could tell you um, some extremely dark days that I had had that everyone has in their life. And I can tell you that I overcame them and rebuilt my life over. And I feel like if I can do what I've done, then so can anybody else, and vice versa. I remember talking to my dad about something or somebody who did something. I can't remember what it was. And he said, you can do it too. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. And he said, you can do anything anyone else has done. And I thought, well, give it a whirl. And it worked out. You have to have belief in yourself, in your abilities. And every time you walk out that door, every time you go in public, you should conduct yourself accordingly. Smile at somebody, say hello, say thank you when they open a door for somebody else. I helped a lady, elderly lady, into the bathroom a couple months ago at a grocery store, and she had a walker, and nobody else would hold the door for her. And I thought, you know what? I mean, it's just people don't take the time. They're not considerate. They're not thoughtful. Um, we need to have more compassion, grace, understanding, and thoughtfulness. So, with that and with belief, I want to share a story, and then I'm going to probably wrap this up. Um, I want to share a story about um, my dad when he had cancer. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma cancer um, in 2014. And he was one of those people, who grew up on a ranch, grew up on a farm. Um, if they cut their hand open, they just kind of sewed it back together themselves. They didn't go to doctors. They didn't believe in doctors. They didn't believe in, you know, Western medicine. And my dad was very naturopathic, and so am I. And we would speak for hours about, natural remedies and this and that. And he used to drink this tea that I think it was called Essex tea or Podiarco, something of that nature. I'm not quite sure. And anyway, it was quite a process. And he lived in Arizona during the winter, so I flew to Arizona and spent 3 weeks in 2014 with him. Because he would not allow caregivers into the home. That's another story. Stubborn. So, anyhow, I helped him make his tea, and it was quite a process, making the tea and then cooling it and straining it, and then he had to use distilled water and then put it in. And, it was kind of funny because I was always like, oh, you and your tea, you and your tea. But while I was on that 3 week journey there in Arizona, we went to the Mayo Hospital in Scottsdale, I believe. I could be wrong. Anyway, and we went there, and while we were in the cafeteria, because his scheduling was just exhausting, they would have him come in at like 9 in the morning and then see this doctor, this doctor, this doctor, then have a PET scan and this. And it was like an all day affair. So while we were having a break in the cafeteria, this little old lady was talking to my dad, and he could talk to anyone, and he did. He and people gravitate towards him, which I have the same thing happened to me my whole entire life. People come to me, but anyway, he was talking to this elderly lady, and she was talking about these tumors that she had and that she drank this special tea. And my dad was like, Nance, come over here, listen to this lady. And I was like, oh, here we go, another hour of whatever. And because, I was just kind of worn out, and it's stressful when your family member has cancer and then you're in a chemo ward, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wasn't really having the conversation, but I just sat there and listened. What sparked my interest was she was drinking the same tea that my dad had been drinking, and her tumors had shrunk, and her doctors were amazed. They were like, we don't know why your tumors are shrinking, but they are. And my dad was like, that's that tea. That's that tea. And I really think that the tea kept him alive a lot longer than he should have been. I really think so. He waited until he had stage 4 cancer before he went in for a diagnosis. And I think he knew before that from other things. He was getting big lumps. They started out kind of golf ball size, and then he kept wearing shirts that covered his neck, which he normally never did. But we couldn't tell him anything as usual. He did what he was going to do his way and how he was going to do it. So, just to say that, that tea actually had a major effect on that woman. And, you know, when you have a diagnosis versus prognosis, you've got to, Western medicine is useful in certain areas for sure. There's no dispute about that. But statistics are very impersonal. And if I went by statistics, I would have never had a child. I was told when I was 21 years old that I would probably never have a child, because I had a lot of issues with certain things. And, at 24, I gave birth to my son. And that's 19 days after I turned 24. I gave birth to my son. So, um, are doctors always right? No. Should listen to doctors? I think when it's something as heavy as, you may never have kids, or, you have a certain type of cancer, I think you should see a couple different doctors. I think that I would see a couple different doctors. I just took that doctor's word for it because I thought, well, he's a doctor. But, don't hand over your power that easily. Again, going back to my dad, and when he had cancer, um, you know, uh, he had a doctor tell him he needed to be on dialysis. And my dad did it once or twice and then he quit. Well, then I had flown into Arizona. I flew in several times during his sickness to be with him. And it just so happened that the time that I was there, he had this appointment with this nephrologist. And this, I won't say his name. I totally remember his name. And I absolutely remember the look on his face. Um, he came in and he was shaming my dad. He was shaming him. He was saying, well, Mr. Jukanovich, looks like you don't like dialysis. Looks like you quit. And I looked at him. Of course, my dad didn't say a word to him. My dad just sat there and looked at him. He looked at him, and I knew probably what was going on in my dad's head. But um, I said to that doctor, Mr. Jaconch, doesn't look like you like, dialysis. You quit. And I looked at the doctor and I said, does anybody like dialysis? Ooh, and the look on his face. Oh my goodness. I mean, he got my point. And then my dad started laughing. and and then we left the room and my dad was like, that was a good one, Nance. I was like, yeah, it was. First of all, I'm just as protective over, or was over, my dad. Well, I still am. If there's a situation, someone brings something up, I'm just as protective over him as I am my own kid. So, my claws came out. I was just conducting myself like a lady, but still getting my point across. So, when it comes to diagnosis versus prognosis, we really need to look at the situation. And, that brings me to, um, another thing that is going on with our immunity is, the biology and physiology that is going on in ourselves. So our immune system is either in the fight or flight or in the rest and repair. We want it in the rest and repair. Right now, the majority of our population is in fight or flight. There is an enormous amount of fear that is going on. Fear, the media. Okay. And I'm not a fan of the news. Uh, I'll bring up my dad again because I can hear him right now, I swear, saying the same thing. You should watch the news. It keeps you informed. No, it doesn't. It keeps you informed as to what they want you to know. I have several people in my family that have been in the military, and I know a lot more than that news is telling you. And no, I don't believe that. The weather report's not even accurate. At least here in the Pacific Northwest, it's always kind of, you know, um, a little kooky, our weather. Like right now, it's sunny and then it's dark and sunny. Yesterday, it was like monsoon rain. The skies opened up twice. scared my dog half to death. Of course, everything scares him. He's very skittish. He's a rescue dog. But so we're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and repair. We want to be in rest and repair. And how do we do that? We do that by coping with our stress. I heard somebody say not too long ago, well, my husband had an AFib because, attack because of this situation and that. And I just thought to myself, your husband needs better coping skills with his stress. But I didn't say that, of course, but that's exactly accurate. We have to learn how to behave. Well, excuse me, we have to learn how to behave, but we have to learn how to be able to cope with everyday stress. Everyday stress. How do we cope with it? What are some coping skills that we can use? Um, you know, sorry, I had this little note thing here because I can't remember the millions of things that I'm thinking about all day. So here's some good coping tools for everyday stress. And these are things that I do. And I learned how to do these things, some of them from other sources as well. So I always say go for a walk. When you're really stressed out, go for a walk. You don't have to walk for an hour a day or half hour, whatever, just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Quiet your mind and go for a walk. It is a complete declutter. It will relieve the stress by giving you some good endorphins like dopamine and serotonin. And this actually in other countries, doctors will prescribe to a patient who has severe depression or anxiety to walk several times a week per so many minutes, etc. It's actually a prescription that some doctors are using, which has become extremely effective. And when I worked in mental health, I had a walking group, which I'm laughing because not a lot of people showed up. Um, but the ones that did, there was an immense amount of benefit for them. And we would, talk along the way while we were walking, so that was good for them and good for me too. So another thing is to practice um, gratitude. Pardon me, my allergies are killing me today. Um, every day you should think of three things that you're grateful for. Three things that um, and it can be anything. And I've talked about this before. It could be anything. It could be just you have a full tank of gas in your car. That's something to be, very grateful for. Um, you know, Another thing is to reflect on each one of the things that you're grateful for. Reflect on them. Why are you grateful for them? How come? I do encourage journaling and automatic writing and writing about your day. I think that writing is a profound benefit as far as like it's a wonderful therapy. It's therapeutic to write things down. I have a journal, I have a gratitude journal, I have another journal. I've kept a journal since I was about 13 years old, I believe. So it's a wonderful thing to do and it's extremely therapeutic. And it's between you and the paper. So that's nice as well. Another thing is to practice meditation. Now, there's different types of meditation. Obviously, there's transcendental, there's um, guided meditations you can get off podcasts like or on YouTube. Um, I really prefer music, and I'm lucky and fortunate that I have a creek 100 feet from my front door, so I can walk over to the creek and I can stand there and just melt into the music and focus on each word of the lyrics and not what's going on in my mind, and just completely quiet my mind, give thanks while I'm there, be in deep gratitude, and to meditate. um I really feel like this is a wonderful way to de-stress, and you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's free. You don't need any fancy equipment for it, just like walking. It's You don't need anything but a good pair of shoes So, the other thing I wanted to say for, tools for everyday stress is releasing negative thoughts. We have something that occurs called, automatic negative thoughts, ants, A-N-T. And when those come into your mind, you want to shuffle them right back out. You don't want that negativity. The negativity that you have from other sources, or maybe your day isn't going quite, the way you wanted it to go. Think of the situation that you're having and focus on the lesson, focus on why. And not, I mean, I'm very analytical. My mind is very analytical. I tend to sort of pick apart certain situations, not all. I don't give my energy to every situation. But the end result should be you releasing any resentment or negativity or anything of that nature. Hate and anger are very destructive, and they are in abundance in our world, in our communities right now. And um, sorry about that. Release your negative thoughts. It's up to you you're the architect of your life. Nobody else is the building. You are. You're the builder. You're the person who is, um, absolutely in control of your, destiny and, your purpose. And I said this in, my last video. If you don't know your purpose and your meaning, you might want to figure that out. Sometimes we have several purposes and several meanings. But part of, happiness is, there's four major components per Arthur Brooks, who is a Harvard professor. I have a lot of research from Harvard. Harvard has my heart. Harvard is, Carol Dweck, who is the founder, and she pioneered groundbreaking the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. She's professor of psychology at Harvard. And Arthur Brooks, I greatly admire. I cannot even list every single person I admire, but there's four components of happiness. And Arthur Brooks is a social scientist and professor at Harvard. And there's four components. It's faith, family, friends, and meaningful work slash purpose. Those are the building blocks of, and faith doesn't have to be religious. There's some people out there who are religious and some people are spiritual. Um, you can have faith in negativity. You could have faith that your day is going to go really bad. It's not, faith is, when I say faith, I'm not talking about religion or, anything of that nature. Um, you don't have to be religious or spiritual to have faith in something, but you have to have it. You have to have faith. So I'm going to close this out with really encouraging each and every one of you to do your part to, make our world better. I know that sounds corny, and, it's, um, it's not something a lot of people think of right now, but I really would encourage you to go inward and pull out compassion. I'm no longer upset, or um, I have compassion for the woman that thought I this is just funny to say it. Um I have compassion for the woman who thought that I was going, or that I took her parking spot, and that was going to call the police on me for taking her parking spot. Which uh, I've never done that in my life. I'm extremely polite and respectful to people, and I don't make them earn it. I give it to them, and it's up to them to keep that respect or to lose that respect. And are there people that I don't respect? Absolutely, 100%. There's a lot of people I don't respect. Um, that doesn't mean I'm going to be unkind to them, but I do have compassion over the situation that happened on Wednesday. And I even have compassion about the other situation that happened earlier this month. Um, that people are this angry and upset, and um, we need some major change in this world. And I don't, always do everything 100%, but I have faith in the next day I can do it better. I can be better than I was the day before. And I just really would hope that we can make a difference. The community that I have on my wellness site, the people that I've had on my YouTube channel, the clients that I've had, and current clients, make my cup runneth over, as far as I'm very grateful for what I'm doing, and I'm hoping that it'll be a ripple effect, and each one of you can do your part as well. So I thank you for listening and watching this video, and I might make this an every Friday event. I'm not sure yet. I have to kind of look at some other things, but we'll see with how many people view this, and how many people I sort of reach, if I'm going to be doing this every Friday. So, again, I thank you all for being here. I'm overly grateful for each and every one of you. And I wish you a wonderful weekend, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Um, and we need to give thanks for that as well. Major thanks for Memorial Day weekend. So take care.